Pretty awesome little clip here. Roger Waters of Pink Floyd fame. Say that 5 times fast. Just really amazing person, and is willing to use his power, his position, his privilege to actually speak up on things that matter. A lot of people in the music or entertainment industry aren't willing to do the same, as well as, creating amazing music and art for us to consume as well. And here he was on the Katie Halper show being interviewed. This was a couple weeks back, about TYT and them smearing, Aaron Mate for his fine work, excellent work, covering the OPCW cover-up scandal with regards to all the shenanigans the OPCW perpetrated with regards to, censoring their own report, censoring their own people that work there, with actual evidence that the evidence doesn't point to Assad having committed those, chemical attacks against the Syrian people in Douma. And here, Roger Waters addresses that and calls out TYT in pretty spectacular fashion. Let's take a listen.
Yeah.
What, do you want to comment?
Yeah, of course, sure.
What
yeah.
a fucking stupid fat prick. It's just as long
I mean, I don't necessarily agree with, fat shaming people, but that's his prerogative.
Throwing the F word around. I mean, and that woman, I haven't the faintest idea.
Talking about Kasparian.
She obviously can't read or write. All you have to do is a little bit of research to understand that all the research that has gone into the OPCW debunked, and the huge story that is the OPCW, and the huge story that lies behind that has been completely ignored by the mainstream media.
Yeah.
Because it's inconvenient. And when you actually look at the work that Aaron Mate, for a start, but Grey Zone in general do in trying to bring us, we the people, the truth about what's actually going on in our world, to listen to that garbage and disgusting and foul-mouthed, I have to say. That very well.
This is obviously in that just lie-filled rant that both Cenk and Anna went on against Aaron Mate, where Anna was saying, yeah, fuck you, Aaron Mate, fuck you, and Cenk was saying, hope you feel cozy and warm in your Russian blanket. I mean, again, it's not really any surprise why TYT's viewership and just credibility is went completely in the tank at this point, when they're just shown to be useful idiots propping up U.S. State Department talking points, supporting this horribly disastrous intervention in Syria when claiming to be anti-imperialist, anti-interventionist, and then smearing actual fucking journalists who have journalistic credibility, like Aaron Mate, who actually went to fucking Syria and has seen this destruction that has been leveled upon this country, who had actually had some really, high standards of living before this disastrous war and intervention, U.S.-led intervention. Instead of maybe having Aaron Mate on to discuss, the sanctions which are starving that country, how the U.S. controls 1/3 of Syria still, the oil-rich and breadbasket region of the country. Instead of having an actual journalist on who has expertise in this area and credibility, they smear him because, again, they're useful idiots for U.S. empire and spreading State Department talking points. And really, I think Max Blumenthal pointed this out when he was being interviewed by Jimmy Dore about this, how they're just really projecting. They're upset at people like people at the Grey Zone, whether it be Mate, Ben Norton, Max Blumenthal, because they actually have journalistic integrity and they're willing to stand up against U.S. empire and call out this bullshit, as opposed to TYT, who parrots it word for word.
I hesitate to call her a young lady because she's not she's clearly not in the prime of youth. But that's neither here nor there. But the fact is, how dare she pontificate on some tin-pot fucking show like the Fabulous Young Turks or whatever they call it? Well, who the fuck are they? I mean, to claim that she knows that Bashar Assad made a chemical attack to kill his own children or the children of his people is beyond condemnable. Is that a word?
I think so.
Yes. I shouldn't really be expending any breath on it because it's so pitiful and pathetic. I am not going to waste my borrow on whatever the young fucks are. Because that was disgusting.
Yeah.
And I've heard bad things about them for a long time. But they purport to be thinking young people who have an alternative. They're not.
Yeah,
they are the status quo.
Yes.
Bolstering what the great American empire believes, and obviously they're great supporters of regime change.
100%. Boom. Roger Waters just fucking laying out the facts there. And again, don't necessarily agree with the fat shaming aspect of his critique, but everything else super on point. They're just propping up U.S. State Department talking points in service of U.S. empire and imperialism to hugely disastrous consequences. And they claim to be the home of progressives and claim to also be anti-interventionist, anti-imperialist when they're supporting the same thing they claim to be against and smearing people who actually live up to those standards and values and call out U.S. propaganda and bullshit and outright lies. Again, I think it's a lot of projection because Kasparian, Cenk, others at TYT actually wish they had that type of journalistic integrity that people like Aaron Mate has. So let's check out this little clip of Aaron Mate. So it's back March 12th. On why 5X OPCW officials have joined Noam Chomsky, Daniel Ellsberg, Lawrence Wilkerson, Tulsi Gabbard, and other prominent signatories to urge the OPCW to address the cover-up of Syria, chemical weapons probe, and hear out dissenting scientists. And I'm kind of the view that I think there's nothing wrong with necessarily going on shows like Tucker Carlson if you're, talking about important stuff like this. And if, Tucker Carlson was to say something fucked up, racist, or bigoted, which obviously there's a chance he does because, he has a lot of abhorrent views and beliefs, and obviously you would call that out to his face. Like, was it Walker Bregman or something like that? This European economist actually was on Tucker at one point and really called him out and held him accountable for his bullshit. And of course that interview didn't air because Tucker got his ass handed to him in that exchange.
The original OPCW team that went to Syria did not find any evidence of a chemical weapons attack in Douma.
Mm-hmm.
They wrote up their findings in a report.
And it was suppressed.
That report was suppressed and kept from the public.
Yep.
They were then removed from the investigation and replaced by officials who would never set
who would
foot
toe
in
that
Syria,
line, yeah.
Who then put out a final report that excluded the key scientific findings of the original team and reached unsupported conclusions. And this is not just an allegation from two whistleblowers, it's documented in a damning series of leaks that have come out. They were given to WikiLeaks. We've gotten some too at the Gray Zone. And they show in great detail what happened here, what a cover-up this was, and anybody can see the facts for themselves. Now, instead of grappling with these facts, the OPCW, as you said, has attacked these whistleblowers at the UN Security Council. When
the former, I believe the first head of it, he's probably going to say, wanted to testify about this cover-up, all the bullshit that the OPCW was creating, was letting happen, was being a part of. They wouldn't, the UK, France, and the US wouldn't let him testify at the UN about this. Let's see, I bet this is what he says.
Former OPCW chief came to speak out in support of these dissenting inspectors. the U.S. and its allies blocked him from speaking. So when you won't let the actual scientists speak, when you won't let their evidence be weighed,
Pretty telling,
you're
right?
preventing top officials like Mr. Bustani from speaking at the UN Security Council, it tells you something. It tells you that there's something to hide. It's a cover-up. And that is why this week this letter came out featuring a number of prominent signatories: Daniel Ellsberg, Noam Chomsky, Tulsi Gabbard, Colonel Lawrence Wilkerson, as well as 5 former OPCW officials calling this out. And the reason why, as you say, these lies can lead to war. We know the consequences from the Iraq
Fucking drop bombs as a result of this.
And
I think it's very, very interesting, too, that what TYT and other liberal hacks are doing is actually holding water for crimes, war crimes that were committed under Trump. Because, again, this happened under Trump, this OPCW cover-up. So I think 2018, maybe earlier, bombs were dropped, people were killed on false pretenses. Again, we should never have been in fucking Syria to begin with, Iraq, Afghanistan, Libya, etc.
These allegations of chemical attacks in Syria are being used to justify the ongoing U.S. military occupation there and the sanctions that are
crippling,
Syria, preventing the import of food and medicine, destroying Syria's economy, preventing it from rebuilding. And that is not good for Syrians. It's not good for Americans. It's only good for warmongers in Washington.
I completely agree. And that as you're talking, I'm thinking, why is this left to Aaron Mate in the gray zone to report? Where's the New York Times in this? But I'm grateful that you have, and I'm glad you came on tonight. Aaron, thank you.
There you go. I'm assuming that's probably the statement, but yeah. So the report was seized by the Trump admin and the media, often last time the organization has been mentioned on their pages. Justification for U.S. actions, however, its credibility is quickly undermined by the leaking of internal memos from experts on the ground who claim that their opinions had been censored and that, in their estimation, the canisters were likely placed at the site of the incident, suggesting an inside job from American allied forces who controlled that part of the country at that point. These Al-Qaeda, these jihadist-linked groups. Senior OPCW officials reportedly ordered the removal of all traces of dissenting opinion from the published document. However, the org's first president, this is what Aaron Mate talked about, Brazilian diplomat Jose Bustani, expressed his grave concerns over the news, fearing the OPCW, which was founded in 1997 to represent all 193 of its member states, had become a toolist government. Oh, shit. Excuse me. Which clearly... oh, damn. Which it clearly has. He's right. Scandal continued to grow through 2020 as OPCW experts came forward to give testimony as to how their findings have been completely manipulated or ignored in order to present one-sided, incorrect view of events in order to further an agenda. A further agenda of U.S. imperialism and further intervention and destruction of Libya. Things reached a fever pitch last month. However, when Bustani was invited to speak at the UN Security Council about his concerns, what was blocked by the United States and its allies on the basis that he was not in a position to provide expert details about the chemical weapons or the attack. What has happened now is yet more sad proof that Western delegates fear the uncomfortable truth, said Russia's ambassador to the UN, Vasily Nebenzia. The Russian delegation subsequently read out Bustani's testimony, and doing so was accused of undermining the legitimacy of the tribe. I mean, Jesus Christ. What fucking legitimacy? Jesus Christ. So here's Bustani. Regardless of whether or not there's substance to the concerns raised about the OPCW's behavior in the Duma investigation, hearing what your own inspectors have to say would be an important first step in mending the org's damaged reputation. I mean, how can you trust anything they fucking say or do at this point when they're just tools for fucking U.S. imperialism? The dissenting inspectors are not claiming to be right, but they do want to be given a fair hearing. As one director general to another, I respectfully request that you grant them this opportunity, he concluded. Censoring a respected former head of OPCW is the latest in a sad string of attempts to keep public wildly misinformed, but really took place in Duma in 2018. Haddad told Mint Press. OPCW's frankly childish approach to addressing this incident shows how politicized this body has become. Yeah, definitely not fucking independent. Severely undermining its impartiality and credibility going forward. There are developments that should be deeply concerning to everyone, especially given that the real perpetrators of chemical weapons attacks are now that much more likely to go unpunished. So yes, again, this whole cover-up, trying to frame that this was something that the Assad government did when the evidence doesn't support that at all, it's letting off the hook whoever fucking did this. Probably these jihadist, Al-Qaeda linked groups who thought, well, this would bring, more U.S. intervention into the region, which wouldn't be good for Assad, and maybe they'll keep funding us and giving us weapons. Look at this. This is not, so Bustani actually seems to be a pretty principled person here. This is not the first time that Bustani has run afoul of the U.S. government. In 2002, he was unlawfully removed from his position as Director General of the OPCW after contradicting U.S. claims over weapons of mass destruction in Iraq. Jesus. Gee, look at this. The Bush admin under Secretary of State John Bolton, renowned war criminal piece of shit that he is, threatened to kill his family if he did not resign. You have 24 hours to leave the org, and if you don't comply with this decision by Washington, we have ways to retaliate against you. We know where your kids live. Jesus. The U.S. has used the Doom attacks as justification for increasing sanctions on Syria, a country where at least 83% of the people live below poverty line, in large part because of this U.S. fucking war, this intervention. According to the UN, over 13 million people are in need of humanitarian assistance. And again, these Caesar sanctions, which have continued under the Biden administration, are just fucking crippling this country. Yeah, this is the bottom line. I agree. Clearly, the U.S. and its allies do not want transparency and open debate about the OPCW Doom investigation. And one can only conclude that this is the case because they know full well that the claims cannot be substantiated. Smears and censorship are the only tactics they had left. And this is from Monthly Review, kind of a leftist outlet. And Alan McLeod does great work. Originally published at Mint Press. Yeah, Mint Press does great work as well. But I mean, again, this is the lie that the Young Turks and other liberal hacks are parodying. U.S. State Department talking points that have clearly been debunked, but they're still holding water for these war crimes that were committed under the Trump administration, which is pretty interesting considering that, TYT and Cenk in particular are such, vehement or claim to be vehement opponents of Trump, but I guess not when it comes to U.S. imperialism and, and war crimes. They're complete support of that. And kudos to Rodger Waters for calling them out on their bullshit. Love to see it. Love to see people with that type of power and privilege and status to actually use it for some good and not just, I don't know, trying to sell fucking cars or watches or something. So love to see it. Need more people in the world like that. Like the video if you like the damn video. Subscribe for more content. Peace. Much love. All power to the people.